Welcome to the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we, a business owner and an artist, discuss the business of art and the art of business. Hey friends, I'm Carl, founder of Epic Made, and I'm the host of the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we share our thoughts on creativity, art, and business. Past guests include Sebastian Lopez Fernandez of Awake Abroad Media, Jared Beasley of Astoria, and Carrie Ann King of Illuminate Labs. I'm forever grateful for the supporters of the podcast, and I'm always looking for more sponsors. That said, Pixel Retentive is brought to you by the creative gurus at Epic Made. Epic Made is a team of strategists and artists who excel in visual storytelling. Our studio crafts unforgettable animation and illustration that not only captivates your audience, but also drives tangible business results. We specialize in engaging imaginative, pop culture savvy audiences with beloved clients like Nickelodeon, WWE, and Sci-Fi. Visit getepicmade.com and let's collaborate on your next creative campaign. All right. So with us today, we have Tom Briggs. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Carl, thank you. So good to be here.
Really appreciate you coming on, man. All right. So Tom is a mercenary CMO focused on brand strategy and competitive marketplace positioning. For 20 years, Tom has worked with companies ranging in scale from global Fortune 50 to pre-venture stage startups. An internationally cited social media strategist researcher, Tom is a Center for Creative Leadership graduate, Alt MBA graduate, and active mentor at ADP Lives. All right, here we go. That's quite a list you got there, Tom.
20 years, man. It's weird how you blink and your career just kind of stacks up behind you. But it's been a long, winding journey. But lessons learned, fun times had, and yeah, you and I crossed paths a few years back and have had some intersections since.
Yeah, it's been fun, man. Every time we've interacted on anything, it's been really cool. We seem to have very similar values and motivations in life, which was cool. So,
yeah, it's good to work with good people who, just do good work.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to have those values, which we'll get into in a little bit here. So, So before we jump into today's topic, I'd love for our audience to get to know you a little bit better. So how long have you been in your industry, and what project are you most proud of so far?
Yeah, so I'm chatting with you today from Portland, Oregon, upper left coast of the U.S. It's where I grew up and where I've made my career, went away for school and then came back and then worked my way up through small to mid-size agencies, really cut my teeth on lean, agile teams. Had the good fortune to work with, much larger companies, come alongside and partner with larger agencies and really just see how the sausage is made in the world of agency, in the world of marketing. My background was in journalism. I've always been a writer. I thought I was going to be a writer, professional writer. And then the dark arts of marketing, design pulled me in and really had the chance to build my early career. If you think of the Venn diagram overlap of design and marketing sitting right there in the middle. So looking at, the science of marketing, the quantitative number side, and then, design as art, commercial art, with a purpose in mind, and really just coming up, got to work every level of the marketing funnel from, paid per click, search engine optimization, all the way up to top of funnel around value creation, product market fit, positioning, really articulating things like that. It's where I've decided to plant my flag now. Portland Metro, home of some big companies that I think are pretty fun. So Nike, their world headquarters, it's about 5 miles down the road. Had some opportunities to work with them. It's always a masterclass in marketing, brand strategy. Anytime I get a chance to do that. But my longest standing client is Intel. Been working with them on the outside for about 20 years now, which has been really fun. I was a total geek growing up. Remember building my first x86 PC with my dad. So to come alongside them when processor architectures were moving to multi-core, even back then, I knew like, wow, this is a sea change in what they can accomplish with silicon microarchitecture. So honestly, a big part of my career has been taking brilliant language, brilliant inventions from, PhD researchers, material scientists, and translating that down into, okay, what does that mean for you and me. It allows us to have a HD video chat while, streaming, while recording, allows you to play, the latest AAA gaming title, at 100 plus FPS. So worked with pretty much all their product groups. When I think of really the tentpole project, it's probably come from them. Had a chance to take from inception to end result, something called Intel Gamer Days a few years back is effectively Intel's take on an Amazon Prime Day type promotion. So, all the way from whiteboarding that out to, okay, what do we want this to be? Really crafting it as a celebration of gaming. PC gaming, really community. We've got in a number of, retailers to game publishers to systems makers and really, everything from giving away just an over the top $5,000 custom built liquid cooled rig to just working with influencers and, playing in the realm of gaming. It's just a fun community. I have two kids, so I don't get to game as much as I used to. So I still do it on the side, and it's a fun, supportive community. It's a great way. Now my kids are getting into stuff like Roblox and Minecraft, and being able as a dad to play along with them. My youngest is like deep diving on the latest Zelda game, and he is like so far beyond it than anything I could ever imagine. Back in the day, it was like isometric 2D, and that blew my mind. So the stuff he's learning and coming up with, and the hacks he's putting together, it's fun.
Yeah, dude. Well, as a lifelong PC gamer and console gamer, like dial-up modem MMORPG days, like thank you for your service out there, building these gamer things and helping with Intel. That's really amazing, man. I love that. And I can relate across the board. Be it my kid. My kid's 12 now. He's starting to kick my ass in video games, which feels disrespectful, but like let's.
You get humility served to you eventually. It comes around.
Dude, he ran on me 8 matches in a row on Tekken like a year and a half ago, and I was like, where are we? Like, what is going on? I love the game. Like, that's been part of my core identity, just kind of passing the torch, I guess. I don't have time to game anymore, right? Like, I'm always working. There's some 15 other things that need to happen. Like, I'll go on benders every once in a while, but for the most part, like, I'm running all the other stuff. But every once in a while, I'll just sneak away like every night for like 4 hours for a week straight and, be reckless with it. But yeah, I'm sure that goes up. You find one you got to do. It's usually a Zelda or a God of War or something where I've got to, continue it. I got to beat the next iteration, just because it's part of what I've been doing with my life, man.
Yeah. I fired up, gosh, it's like, what are they coming up on 20 years? I jumped back into a World of Warcraft, which is just such like seminal. I remember playing it when it first came out. I was like, a couple of years ago, I'm like, I'm gonna check back in, see what the latest, I level cap's like 80 now. When I dropped off, it was around the 60. So yeah, the completionist side of me is like, oh my gosh, okay, this is like a very deep rabbit hole where, okay, I got to do this. Oh man, okay, 5 more minutes, and yeah, it's like super hyper.
And you're gone. Yeah.
I need to like put guardrails around this because I'm like, this could definitely eat up all my time and space.
Yeah, it's really crazy, man. I'm totally with you on that. So, instead of I want to deep dive into more of gaming stuff, but I'm sure we'll loop it back in somehow. But yeah, so look, today we wanted to talk about values-led brand strategy, and that's one of the things. Like the first time I met you, we met like networking on Lunch Club, and we started doing those like group calls where you just started bringing in people where like you resonated with, like, and these people all have like similar values. Let's get them in the same place and just start sharing stories and see what happens. But like, I just was really moved by like the idea of how you operate and really putting that forward. I started my company in 2006 and I didn't see a lot of that, and I didn't know at the time either, like that you should be building your own brand and kind of like making it very unique and personable. Like I was still in the, like make what I think everyone wants to see phase of my entrepreneur journey where I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like, oh, well, this is what it should look like because these companies look like that. Right. So I love just the really deep, we're going to intentionally do it this way and have like human-centered values and stuff. So I love for you kind of just jump into that a little bit.
Yeah, values is one of those words that means a lot of different things to different people. A lot is wrapped up in, and so is brand. So
Right.
we should clarify terms. When someone's like, okay, values, what does that mean? And I oftentimes, if I'm coaching, mentoring, or helping someone kind of get at that, I'm like, okay, open up your Google Calendar, look back over the past month. What are you spending time on? What are you devoting, energy to? What are you spending money on? Because that's the clearest indicator of your values. You can say you value your family, over your business, but are you spending that time with your family? Are you spending that time with your kids? So that's, a best way. It's my definition to get at it. And then once you identify that, you can really start to, as you build out your business network, as you build out your personal network, you can use that as a bit of a filter where I get a lot of juice out of hanging out with people who share my values. So, that means, it could be fellow dads. I have a group of dads I get together with for whiskeys and, we'll do a bonfire now that it's fall every month and just catch up, chat about stuff like that. But things can be things like curiosity. I really vibe with people who are lifelong learners, who are, in innovation spaces, kind of eager to look down the road and see what's next. Humanity. I have a high view of humanity. I think, we stumble and, scrape our knees every once in a while, but I think, more good than evil comes out of humans. So once you start to look at things like that, you can use that as a filter to say, okay, this client relationship, are we, do we have the same values? I.e., are we speaking the same language? Are we, reading from the same book? And it can become a really nice measure, from day one, interaction one, versus, if there's that misalignment or that kind of, feeling in the pit of your gut, like maybe we're not quite on the same page. Better know at that first meeting than 6 months down the road where you're just not jiving. Oftentimes when you're just not jiving, you can, if you go back and map to values, you can say, okay, there's a misalignment here about what we truly prioritize. The work versus the pay can be a great thing. In the creative realm, it's always about, okay, you can have, the Picasso, but, you're not going to get it for the, bargain basement artwork price.
Right.
So investing in good stuff, but you can take that measure to so many things. Truth, accuracy, quality. There's just so many things that can fall into that. So using values and, it's, I love that you vibed with it the first time we chatted and we're like, oh, what is that? Oftentimes it's intangible. You can't quite name it, but you're like, oh, this person gets me. We're just on the same wavelength. So oftentimes that's attributable to values.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's something a couple things you said in there. Like you trust your gut, right? Like your gut always tells you, like this doesn't feel right, and you don't know why, and it's intangible. Now, once you've gone through some experiential things, you could put your finger on some things, but in that relationship, but it's oftentimes very hard
Yeah.
to put your finger on. Something else you said, your calendar is a tell of your values. Oh my God, that's gonna hurt some people's feelings, Tom. Sorry to hear, I know, but it's gonna hurt some feelings. But and look, there's a difference between acting out of necessity, right? But a lot of people have patterns and routines. Like, hey, look, yeah, you got to work 60 hours right now because you're an entrepreneur and this stuff happened and boo boo. That doesn't mean you don't value your family, but at the same time, like if there's always an excuse, the value of family probably isn't as high as you think it is, and you need to figure out how you can fix that. Now that was just I really like that one, Tom. That's a great little nugget. So
And there are stages and phases to that. I mean, early in anyone's career, you're making the bills, you're climbing the ladder, you're putting in the time, and you may not have the luxury to say no. The highest high I ever had in my entrepreneurship journey was saying no to my first client. It was so good
feels
for a good reason. It's like no, when I can't remember what it was. It was over something, but it was like I was not able to meet their expectation. So, and that's the beauty of a free market economy. They
yeah.
can find someone who will do it for him. I was not that person. And it was very affirming where, but it took time. I mean, that was 10, 15 years into my career. And there's a lot of like getting there. There's a lot of putting in the hours, putting in the reps, whatever your craft, whether your craft is art, design, writing, project management, AI prompt writing, take your pick, but putting in the time to get good enough at it where you get enough recognition where you can pick and choose a little bit and be a little more choosy. I recognize that not everyone is there yet, but it's still a good North Star to aspire to, getting to the point where, my dad is an entrepreneur as well. And he said this thing that really landed with me. The best thing about, punching your own ticket is you get to create a game that you want to play and invite other people who you want to play with in to play with you.
Yep.
That's the privilege. And people who are entrepreneurs get that. They're like, yeah, there's a fundamental difference between, nothing wrong with working for someone else, but us entrepreneurs, we're weird in that, we're a little rebellious and like we like to, create our own game, invite people to play with us.
Yeah. I mean, at some point in my journey, I've been doing this since 2006, and I quit my last job in 2007. So I never did the smart thing that you did, where like I got to see how the sausage was made. It was just all a mystery, and I just opened a sausage factory. I was like, we're gonna figure the fuck it out. Like,
It's the way to do it, man. Learn by doing. That is, you get really good really quickly, right? Oftentimes through mistakes, hopefully none that sink you.
yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like, if you don't have a backup plan, you tend to just figure it out, right? Like, and it's been a crazy journey, but like, yeah, I think I just lost my train of thought. Man, I was something in there. It's all right. We'll get back
There's a
to it.
great book by Marie Forleo. Everything is figure outable. And like the central thesis just comes down to you can figure it out. You with all the Googles, all the internets, all the chats, GPTs, like there is a solution out there and just figure it out, and
100%.
you'll figure the next thing out. And then the next day you'll figure the next thing out. I feel like entrepreneurship is just an endless journey of like, okay, I'm going to figure out the next thing.
Yeah, I think the mindset thing your dad was talking about, and this being a multi-generational entrepreneur is something too, right? Like my dad ran a bunch of businesses and restaurants and was always like, make his own thing. And I think what it boiled down to is that one of my longtime family friends, who was actually a friend of my dad's in high school, like, told me, he's like, I think the core thing about you and your dad is that above all else, you value your freedom, right? Your ability to decide
Yeah.
whatever the hell you're going to do today is on you.
Yeah.
So part of my problem in that wasn't that like I understood that. I just sometimes like I'm very ADD and very excitable and very creative, and like my inability to stop and plan, I think slowed me down a lot. Um,
Mm.
but my ability, because of that, I had to become so adaptable and flexible that like you can throw COVID at me or an economic recession or a depression or like a Democratic president or Republican president, like a good for business environment or bad, it doesn't matter. Like I'll just figure it out, right? Like because I don't have a plan B. It isn't like, oh well, I'm gonna quit or I'm too far down the rabbit hole. Like there's been several points in this business like where it's like because of the value that I have in owning my own destiny and sinking or swimming on my own 2 feet or whatever, however you want to word that, like I never quit and I always figure it out. So it's really powerful. And I think that's in the core of like my life has to feel creative. I have to make cool shit with people I enjoy. And I have to be doing it for myself so that like I know it can be ethically done. Right. Like I don't like how a lot of these other the bigger the company is, it seems like the worse they are, just in general. Like it's just some of the values that they hold. They say they have values, but the value is make money for the shareholders. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is, that is something, whether spoken or unspoken, that is a value that's out there in the marketplace. Yeah. Well, you hit on a really interesting thing there where values, true values, like core values are unchanging. So like if I'm working with a startup, I always tell them like, get at those things that even if you pivot, even if the product changes, even if you do a few marketplace shifts, what are those things that you'll always come back to as hallmarks? And those can be because of the founder you are, because of the founder team you have in place, because of just the fundamental way and belief structure you have as a product of the world. And that really maps interestingly to personal branding. So, Coca-Cola can have a brand and then we can have a brand as well. In fact, more now than ever before, where, functionally we are all at will employees. I find usefulness, it puts me in interior integrity to be able to say, this is who I am and this is what I believe. And it just, I don't know, it becomes a really nice guiding light when things are maybe a little tumultuous. Maybe the next project isn't quite lined up yet. But it gives you that nice foundation to go back to when maybe, the rest of the marketplace is a little bit topsy-turvy. Situations like the exterior world can change, but, functionally, we're rooted in some people.
I love that. What you said, values don't change, right? Like I started this company in 2006 doing graphic design and websites and anything anyone would pay me to do in an Adobe application. Actually, I started learning Macromedia. That's when Macromedia was still around before Adobe bought them out. Put dating that the gray in my beard there, but yeah, it was really interesting to me that you say that, right? Because I always valued lots of detail, lots of creativity, lots of interesting high level stuff. And so we went from doing everything, vehicle wraps and like t-shirt designs, and now we do digital art and animation for huge entertainment brands in the gaming, entertainment, and tech space. But we have this maximalist style, this commitment to lots of detail, lots of creativity, lots of uniqueness that we have never deviated from the beginning. That was in the core of me, and I didn't even know what that was when we started. And you know, going back to something you said earlier about when I declined my first client, it was so powerful, and we weren't in like the greatest space in the world. Like I absolutely needed their $3,000 a month retainer they were trying to give us, but
Yeah.
I knew I was never going to please them. Like I sat down, they came into my office, and they were a nice person, and like but the whole thing felt weird. It was really like just not our vibe. She didn't like our energies were never going to line up nice. Where like we were going to synergize and feed off each other and build something greater together in collaboration. And then she said, you know, I'm just looking for something very clean and very minimalist, like Apple, like the Apple logo. And I was like, perfect. I got a guy for you, but it's not us. Like, and it was really liberating because how much energy and effort would I have spent trying to please someone who didn't value the way that we operated, and thus drained all my energy and drained my cup, so I didn't have enough like life force to kind of go out and get the right clients, right? Because we only have so much energy, so much ability to put into these things, so that's really important. And yeah, yeah. So I just thought that all made a lot of sense to me.
I love that you and I have been in the game long enough. Earlier in my career, I did much more physical, like actually printing stuff, which was really good. You know, I went to press checks and did the PMS drawdowns and knew what to look for if the printing blanket wasn't clean. The Linux Foundation, they did a local event up here in the Columbia River Gorge, and I had to do a wrap, but it was like an adhesive wrap across like 12 windows. So I was dealing with like light transmissibility and like drawdowns and getting the artwork to register. It was like, oh, so stressful. But like after you have done projects like that where you're actually burning resources, like you're actually making something physical, making something digital becomes really easy, like low barrier. Like, oh, that's off. We'll re-upload the file. Whereas like something comes out wrong, you're installing it. It's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have to rerun this at X cost and then, you know, get the reinstallers out here. And it's just like, man, it's like playing the game on like insane extreme difficulty. And then like, oh, you get to step it back down. It's like, hey, this is no problem. I can handle this.
My wife and I talk about this all the time. She's an entrepreneur as well, and she works in green energy and consulting and
Yeah.
environmental justice and kind of how all those intersections. But we feel like we've been playing, life on very hard mode since we were 20, right? Like, and it's finally starting to like shake through and feels nice. And like, I don't even know what to do with myself. I feel a little so I don't trust it, right? Like,
Yeah.
like something's not on fire today. I don't know what's going on. And to your point, you've never had more pain than when you show up to a client with some, 20,000 brochures that have typos on them, or like, or like somebody messed up the guy's phone number on this run of t-shirts for $3,000 and you're only making $500 profit on it. Like, yeah, dude, that is painful. Digital's like, oh yeah, we'll change that. It'll be back over in 5 minutes, right? Like, oh, there's a whole different world. Whole different.
My first creative director, his favorite thing to do anytime something showed up, like it was funny that like eventually it became funny. He's like, what's with the typo? The first thing he would say when it came out of the wrapper, like eventually we caught on, we're like, haha, very, very funny. But
Just
just long.
pause. Everyone's heart sinks.
He like walks in, yeah, drops that and then leaves. Oh man.
Everyone's, all the jokesters out there. Keep you on those though.
Keeps on your toes.
You mentioned something cool earlier too that I think ties into this values conversation, right? Building personal brands. I never gave that the level of I guess the level of appreciation that it needed until COVID, right? And I think some of the real early adopters of this were like Gary V and some of the people in that space where they're just like really building a personal brand that almost never mentions their agency or their their thing they do to make money, but they're just out here trying to like be the beacon of a value and of a mindset and of a type of human being and a way of doing things to attract people to their content that like them, that will then go look at like, oh, well, he does this agency and he does this thing. I want to do business with him. I started doing that over COVID and just talking about growing food in my backyard and being self-reliant and having as much freedom as possible. What does that look like? And happiness for me comes from freedom and creativity. And like, I really had a deep dive into that. Right. And so now I put all that out of my content and I live stream and I make all this art. And it's like, it's attracting people to me that are amazing. And also, if people find me through the other channels, like through my Epic Made and marketing, then they go and look in on me. And it's like, oh, well, we really like this guy. We definitely want to do business with him. Like, he's putting himself out there. He does these things. It's very creative. It's very, the same type of values and things that we have as a business. So it's like a really interesting, it either reinforces or attracts the right people, right? So
Yeah. I have a thought about that. Can I share something real quick? Will that break the like screen share? Will that break the system?
I don't know. We could try.
Don't know. No, let's try it.
My team may or may
Who
not,
knows? All right. They can cut it out or just put the audio on. So looking at personal branding, personal brand comes out of, a number of factors. It's you. It's like diving back into, okay, it's your family, it's your upbringing, it's your, your beliefs, your hobbies, who you are at work, who you are at home, awards you've brought in, experiences, gender, relationships. It's just a summation of all these things that come together to make you you. And this is one of those things where, if someone's in between or kind of looking to discern this, spend some time, do the early morning or late night, however your time, permits, just do some journaling and really dive in. Do some reflection of, okay, what have I liked? Between jobs, career pivots is a great time to do this. So as you can get into it and kind of say, okay, what do I want more of? What do I want less of? It just becomes this kind of natural evolution of you and who you are. And just especially in creative realms, being able to bring your whole self to what you're making, it just dynamically upgrades your game. I mean, it makes you that much more authentic, it makes it that much more fun. If we as entrepreneurs are having more fun, it will shine through in what we're making. And it just becomes, our craft becomes better, our work becomes better. You draw in more clients because, people want to work with others who love what they're doing, and who just shine through. And you become that much more aware and acutely aligned to make the decisions that we talked about earlier of, yes, this is a good client. This is a good project. It makes sense. Or, we're going to pass on that. And, good luck. You can find another shop that maybe fits you all better.
Yeah. You can't fake passion, right? No one believes you if you're trying to like, oh, we're really excited about
not
this.
For any sustained period of time.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I guess you can for a little bit, but yeah, I don't think it makes great work.
No, it doesn't. At the end of the day, you can tell, right? You can tell when it just started getting phoned in because people were over the project and there was a misalignment somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that there's another degree inside of like how what I reinforcing what you said in that diagram, like whenever I'm talking to people and I'm trying to help them position their brand or talk about like what type of work you should do or what industries you should do that type of work for, the thing that was really level setting for me was like, all right, well, let's say we're talking about you like to do websites, right? Well, if you could do a website for a gaming company or a Fortune 500 tech company or a mom and pop shop or a bakery or a yard service company, and the price, profit, effort, all that's the same. Which one are you picking first every time? Oh, that tells you something, doesn't it? You say, what one are you picking second? Okay, well that one's probably on the list too. What one are you never picking up if you could pick 5 and not 6? Oh, I'm never picking that one up. Well, don't promote or advertise to them at all. Build nothing for them, right? And the same thing on like the creative work, right? Like I actually really don't like doing websites. Now that websites have become a lot more creative and less like clunky trying to bolt together a WordPress site for 12 hours and then it doesn't work. Like I like some of these canned systems where we get to make interactive design now, which is cool. But like, if it's animation, illustration, graphic design, logos, websites, pamphlets, print design, all the stuff, like which ones really draw you to it, right? So those are great questions. And then another thing that I like to talk to people about is like, what type of stuff do you work on as an individual where you lose yourself? Like you're gone. You start on it,
Yeah.
3 hours went by, and you got hit the flow state, and you're just like in it. Like, oh my God, what if I did this and then I could do that? And I do that. That could be a spreadsheet for some people, right? Like, but whatever that is, like do that with your life because that's your magic. That's where your secret sauce comes in. And when you start doing that in the right place for people that value what you do and have money to pay for it, that's when you unlock this space where it's like, now you have money to live and you get valued and you have value coming from the other people and they appreciate what you're doing. Like all the stuff starts to align there. So
Yeah, yeah. Now my wife is a CPA, so she geeks out
there it
over
is.
Excel spreadsheets, which yeah, they would just melt my brain. Yeah, and it's kind, and to pass on a client and pass that client on to someone else who genuinely vibes with what they're doing, it's better for them, it's better for you. You just get that better fit, which yeah, will produce a better outcome. Everyone will be happy. And there's always plenty of work out there. There's always more work and just kind of queuing in on what that alignment work is. And yeah, that's the thing I love about being, the intro a mercenary. Like I love jumping into teams. I love jumping into different industries. I mean, over the past year, I worked with a NetJets type provider out of Dubai. So I got to like deep dive on like private, airframe, registration and like how do you charter a flight from Dubai to like Marseille or the Seychelles Islands. So it's really interesting. But then I'd pivot it and like go back to tech or this SaaS product or I had a client in like the spice industry. So I got to deep dive on like spices and spice manufacturing. And it was just really, I'm a super, dedicated lifelong learner. So to be able to kind of jump into these industries and, I was a technical writer for a long time. So my first thing I tell my clients is give me more information than you think I can handle. Like give me the whole background. I'll go off and do my own research, but I need to know everything that you know. And then we can start from there.
So you're one of those guys you sit on the back porch with and like no matter what subject you bring up, you're like, oh, I got about 10, 15 minutes of information on that. I love that.
It's good, because it all relates. It's all, we're all living in the same world in the same cultural moment. So, and that's one of the key principles I've built Epigraph on. It's like, yes, what can art learn from biomechanical research, can learn from AI, can learn from, classical art, can learn from economic theory. Yeah, no, it's and I think that's what creativity is. It's connecting those dots because it all matters. And the more we can get out of our lane and really get out of our one particular discipline and start, peeking over and saying what's happening over there, what's happening over there. It makes us better because we can sort of look at these larger trends. Especially in the business marketplace, there's these currents that are pulling the entire global economy in certain directions. So, we ignore those at our own peril.
I love that. Yeah, those collisions you create from connecting dots and no one ever saw before is where real innovation happens, right? So that's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And I know we don't want to like deep dive into AI too much, but with generative, I think that might potentially, be a limitation where, for generative AI, A plus B equals C because it's, operating from a standardized data set. But we humans are unique. The Greeks called it, being farted on by the gods. There's this weird like A plus B equals like X squared. Just like what? That doesn't logically follow. Like nothing from human history would make that connect. But because we humans and our like just weird neuro wiring make these connections, there's some real value that can be brought there, that we can, in collaboration, I think we work best when we have a really good, AI co-pilot traveler, that makes us better than we could be just solo.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff there. But first, I want to mention it's not very often that I speak to a non-Greek, being Greek, half Greek myself, and learn a Greek saying that I'd never heard before. So now I have to look this up.
There you go.
The
The muses.
Cleanthes, by the way. So it's
Yeah. There you go. I bought that up for you.
I love that. I'm looking that up. Yeah, I don't know how well AI is going to be able to compete with human innovation, right? Like you said, it's working from what we've already created. What does that mean in the future? Can AI never innovate? I don't know, but like I love the technology from a lot of aspects. I think it's going to, I mean, it just like in terms of like analyzing egregious mass sums of data and cross computizing like predictive models. And like, I mean, just from like, hey, we're all starting to get murdered in record numbers by the weather. Like, it'd be great to have better models of prediction that like we can't do without AI. Like AI is going to be able to input way more information, cross-reference way more things. I think uses like that are going to be really remarkable. On the generative side, like I love playing with this stuff. Like it's really fun to just like, okay, I've got this idea. Help me get it out of my head a little quicker. But it never gets it there for me. And I'm really good. Like I'm building my own data sets. Like I'm really getting into this stuff. I'm starting to build out my own lores on my computer and try to like figure out how do I really own this technology on a level that's not just let me punch in some words on a keyboard. And but it's just it's fascinating for me and it helps me like express my creativity faster. And the double-edged sword is like smaller and smaller teams are going to be able to do more and more wildly creative storytelling that we probably never would have been able to do with our budgets and resources. And on the flip side, big companies are going to try to get more and more and more out of each employee so they can hire less and less people and buy more and more vacation homes for their C-suite, you know, because 2 or 3 or 5 is not enough for some of them. Not to sound like a total asshole, but we know what time it is out there.
Yeah, yeah. There's that classic Steve Jobs quote where he said, a personal computer is like a bicycle for the mind. It allows us to go further than we could just solo. And the updated, I can't remember where I heard it from, but the updated evolution of that is AI is like a tandem bicycle. So you have, someone behind you, an AI entity behind you. You're still driving, ideally. You should still be piloting the bicycle. You're the human in the equation. We have this really amazing, support that allows you to go further than you would naturally go and gives you that extra oomph, allows you to, increase productivity, increase everything. I love the quote that, we're not going to be replaced by AI, but there is a likelihood that we might be replaced by someone who knows how to use AI really, really well and can.
Yes. And that's the truth, right? Like, it's like, how many jobs right now require no version of a computer or a smart device or it's like very small, very, very small, right? So, there was a time where computers were like looked at, like if you used a computer, you were like a dork and like less valuable and definitely not a manly man, right? Like you couldn't be a manly man and be a computer guy, right? And that's, pre our generation. I think we grew up in the look at all these computers and fun games and like it just like we didn't have as much of that. But I think it's really interesting here to see where this is going. And you're absolutely right. Like, it's like having especially the chat bots, right? Like a chat GPT, but there's a bunch of them, but like, it's like having a super genius personal assistant who's happy to help you with anything you could possibly want to think about, right? Like I asked mine the other day what the meaning of my life was, and I literally felt seen in this one paragraph I put back out. I was like, holy shit. Like, but I've been putting all my transcripts to shows and all my stuff in there and really trying to train it how to speak and talk like me and understand my motivations and how I work in life and all the projects I'm working on so that when I ask it a question, it gives me relevant answers, right? Like it's, good in-depth information in, you get in-depth, good information out. But like I posted on LinkedIn, if you like last week, you should check it out if you get a chance. But it's basically just like about freedom and creativity and art and helping uplift people and bring them more happiness through unlocking their own creativity. I was like, damn, let's go. So
Yeah. No, you nailed it. Yeah, it's fascinating. I was going to say something, but then it totally slipped out of my brain. Oh yeah, I mean, I remember I'm old enough where I remember like the first time, like first email I sent. My dad had the old dial-up machine, and we were on the BBS, and I had like a godfather in Guam. We were on the West Coast, so he's like, "We're gonna send an electronic letter," and it was just like, I mean, yeah, back then it was like you had to be super wonky and have all the technology, but now it's just normalized. So yeah, it'll become normalized. It'll become just the way we do things and less weird. So yeah, best to follow along and just at least stay up to speed on it.
absolutely, man.
Uh,
Well, I think it's probably a good spot to get into our final question.
Stuff. Question.
Here we are. Here we are. So we're coming up on time, but before we wrap, we have one last question for you. Is there anyone or anything in your career that you would like to shout out to the audience? Maybe a valuable mentor, resource, or favorite client?
Yeah. I love tapping into thought leaders and really, there's a few blue flame thinkers out there who are really doing interesting stuff. And the person who came to mind with this topic is Dr. Marcus Collins. His book For the Culture is really fascinating. It's an exploration of strategy, marketing, but really tapping into just the nature of how movements occur. He's a professor of marketing at the Michigan Ross Business School. But yeah, his book is definitely worth a read. And you can Google him, track him down. He's been on a few podcasts. He was a strategy director for Wyden Kennedy, New York. So I got to shout out the hometown, ruthlessly independent shop. But yeah, his stuff is super solid, and his takes are really really great. Yeah.
What was the name of his book, you said?
For the Culture.
Uh,
His name's Dr. Marcus Collins.
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
And huge shout out to Lunch Club. I know we've brought this up a few times in the podcast. Lunch Club's been a great networking resource. That's where Tom and I met during COVID, I'm pretty sure, where we were just like had no real other places to network, but it's still a good platform. I don't know if you still use it or not, Tom, but I like to.
Here and there, it definitely kicked off networking for me. And just building relationships. And relatedly, if anyone who's tuned in wants to follow along, hello epigraph is .com is the website. You can find the socials there. And yeah, if anyone wants to give a follow, a like, and check the social box for all the SEO, or just reach out and say, hey, heard you here. Good people know good people. So I know people who are tuning into you are good people. Always up to connect on LinkedIn and have a conversation around brand culture, marketing strategy, values, anything we've chatted about. So hello epigraph.com. You can find us on the interwebs.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Tom. You that was my next part here, but we're talking with.
Skipping ahead.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. So we've been talking with Tom Briggs, mercenary CMO and founder of Epigraph. Like you mentioned, you can find him on helloepigraph.com. And if listeners want to follow up with you directly, should they hit you up on LinkedIn or just through your website, like you said? Or
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn a fair amount, so shoot me a DM on there, and that's the best way to catch me.
perfect. All right, Tom. Thanks very much for being on the show, and we'll see you next time, friends.
It's a pleasure.
We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive Podcast.